Hello and welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Millie and I love eyeshadows and I love applying eyeshadow, trying different formulas, trying different brushes. I am not a professional makeup artist. I do have hooded eyes, so I have become very particular in the kinds of brushes that I like, and these are basically the best of the best that I would recommend to you. I have some shaded brushes, some liner brushes, as well as under the lash line brushes, and of course lots of blending brushes that are on the smaller side if that's why you're here. And I do have some brush reviews that are pretty in-depth on some of these brands, and I will talk about that as I'm talking through the video, but I will also be leaving them down in the description box, so definitely make sure to check them out. There are some here that I haven't done dedicated videos on yet, but I do plan on it sometime in the future, hopefully within the next 3-6 months, we'll see. So quickly before I get into all the recommendations, there are a couple of characteristics that really matter when it comes to brushes in general, and those are shape and size. Obviously those two kind of really go together and they affect on how the brush performs. The bristle type, so natural, synthetic, etc. And then there's obviously different levels within both of those as well. And there's also lots of different kinds of synthetic bristles, and they all perform differently depending on the type of synthetic bristle. And then lastly is what I call the bendability of the brush. So basically, how much give do you have when you touch the bristles? Are they easily bendable? Are they more on the stiffer side? And we'll kind of talk about that a little bit on how that affects the blending and what you can expect to get from brushes that are stiffer versus softer. So let's get right into it. I'll be starting out with blending brushes because I feel like this is why most of you are here. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to talk about which are synthetic, which are natural hair, and I will leave timestamps down below. So I just wanted to start off with the Wayne Goss brushes because these were my very first like higher end brushes. I believe I got these before I got Hakuhodo. I may be wrong on that timeline, but regardless, these really just changed the game for me. These are small blending brushes. They're not the smallest, but they're definitely a lot smaller than what you usually see on the market. So let me just zoom you in. You can see there's slightly difference in the shapes, of course. So the 19 is larger than the 20, but I don't think that these are available anymore. I don't see them anywhere on Beautylish, so I think they're discontinued. And these are basically the exactly same as the Rephr 13 and 14 brushes, which these brushes came after Wayne Goss brushes. And then I have some Hakuhodo brushes that are a little bit similar, and I will show you some size comparisons, of course. So moving on to the Rephr brushes, I have so many of each of these. So I have a lot of 13s and a lot of 14s. These are my go-to blending brushes. I reach for these over any other brush besides my Hakuhodo and the two Wayne Goss brushes. But these are just, I know how they work. I've used them for so long, and I feel like my hand just knows how to use them. There's so many different things you can do with these brushes. You can go into the crease, you can do the outer corner, you could even use the 13 brush under the lower lash line. They're just such great workhorse brushes. And I do have a dedicated video on my Rephr brushes. If you're interested in seeing a much more detailed review and showing these in action, then definitely check out that video. I will link any relevant videos down in the description box. But these are just such amazing brushes. I have so many, and I honestly feel like I just can't have enough of these brushes. I do want to point out that I believe that the newest version of these is an all matte handle and everything, and it does not taper. I personally prefer when brushes taper like these other versions, and the lacquer as well, because these just get dirty faster. But that being said, like the brush part is actually exactly the same. It's just a really small personal preference. And I really wanted to also show you something else, which is the difference between brushes that have been used and brushes that are brand new. So these are brand new brushes. So obviously these are dirty, but you can kind of see how they do fluff out a bit after a few washes and just usage. So you can kind of see, I actually prefer when they get to this level versus this. So sometimes I do prefer to wash my brushes before I use them because of that. And I see this mainly only happening with natural hair brushes, obviously, because they are natural fibers, so they have follicles. And for all the natural hair brushes I'm talking about, do not use a color switch. It will break off the tips. Trust me, it will ruin your brushes, and you also don't want to wash these as often as you would wash and as harshly as you would wash synthetic brushes. So that's something to keep in mind if you really want to keep these pretty. I also recently found a hack where you use aloe vera gel and you just just lightly coat your fingers and you go like this to really shape them as they're drying, and I think it makes such a huge difference, and it's also conditioning the bristles. So let's move on to Hakuhodo. These were, like I said, I think either before or after Wayne Goss. I believe it was after. And these were also really, really amazing, life-changing. They have a lot of different shapes. These are just some of my favorite shapes. I do think that the J5529 and the J146 are actually dupes to the Wayne Goss and the 13 and 14 brushes of Rephr. Maybe just slightly different, but they're very, very similar. But of course, these are more expensive than the Rephr brushes, like way more expensive than the Rephr brushes. The Rephr brushes, definitely only buy them when they're on sale. They have tons and tons of sales all the time, so I highly recommend buying them when they're like $14, $15 versus the $22. And also I saw that Hakuhodo will be changing their prices by 30% starting June. So if you really want to buy some of these, I recommend doing it now. But these are also really great. I think the quality on these is amazing. I've had some of these for a couple of years now, and they've just really held up really well. So I have two J146s, and I feel like they look a little bit different. This one looks a little bit more tapered than this one. I'm not sure what's happening there. And then the 142, it's a little bit larger, but it's still nice enough to give you that control. So these are all great options as well. Moving on to Sonia G. I don't have a dedicated video on a Sonia G because I actually don't really prefer most of the shapes, not for my personal preference of how I apply eyeshadow and how I use brushes. This is a mini booster. So if you're, shopping on Beautylish, you have a gift card or something and you want to get a nice, really great quality, smaller blending brush, and this is a good option. I wouldn't go out of your way to get this one, but it is a good brush, but I do prefer some of these other ones. It is also not the same shape and not the same bend as some of these other, the 13, 14 and the Wayne Goss brushes and the Hakuhodo. It's a bit different. It gives you different kind of performance, but I did want to just throw this one in here just in case you already have it, maybe you forgot about it, or maybe, like I said, you have a gift card or something. Next up is Zoeva, and this is also one of my first kind of nicer type of brushes. They have a bunch, and I have a bunch, but these are really the ones that have stood out to me, and that's the 224 and 221. You can see they have different types of bristles up here. These are really flared out, so this will really distribute a lot of eyeshadow evenly all at once, so you won't get much precision with this one versus the 221, which is a little bit more tapered. They are on the fluffier side, so they are larger than the Rephr 13 brush, but these are also great quality, and I think these are going to be really best accessible if you're in Europe. Next up, I have two What's Up Beauty brushes, and these were sent to me along with their palette. They last year, they came out with a palette and some brushes. They used to only do nail polishes, but they started releasing some makeup. And these brushes are really beautiful. The RO2 and RO3. Again, this is like a perfect size little blending brush. I feel like this one is very comparable to the Rephr 14. And then the RO3, you can see, is a bit fluffier, just larger overall, but they do have a similar kind of slightly rounded top, but you do obviously cover more and have just a little bit less precision than with the R102. Next up is a couple of P. Louise blending brushes. These, I believe, are natural hair, but they also have some synthetic ones. Just based on the look of them, I can tell that these are natural hair. So I got these like 50% off at least during their Black Friday sale because I was really curious. As a brand that is owned by a makeup artist, usually those kinds of brands do tend to know that smaller blending brushes and just all different kinds of shapes and sizes really just help out with how you're applying eyeshadow. So this is the 120 brush, the 198 brush, and the 118 brush, and these are all great smaller blending brushes. These two are a little bit similar to each other, but they are just nice and small, both domed at the tip, and then the 120 here is, I think, a little bit more similar to the 224 Zoeva brush. I do feel like, though, that these are just getting a little bit prickly. I haven't even had them for that long, but I do feel like the quality of the other brushes that I talked about is better than these. Like, I don't know if these will last me 5 years. Maybe I will be surprised, but I just don't want to throw that out there. But I mean, if you can get them 50% off, so they're basically like $8, I really feel like you can't go wrong with that. So these are three more P. Louise brushes, and these are the ones I believe are synthetic, and you can just kind of tell by the bristles and the way that they feel and the way that they bend, and also after washing them I can just tell the way that they dry. They look different. But we have the 143, which this is such an amazing little tiny brush. It is even smaller than the Rephr 13. It does not have a dome though. It is flat at the top, but it has a really nice bend to it, and it is not too fluffy, obviously. And then the 142, which this one is a little bit fluffier and a little bit more domed, and also the bristles are obviously black instead of white. And then this one right here, it just says 117, and I think that's basically just like a longer version of and larger version of the 143 right here. So I feel like these are like basically a big sister and a little sister. But these are really, really great for detailed application of like getting right in the crease and also just blending, especially on smaller hooded lids. Next up are the Makeup Shack brushes. I've been using Makeup Shack for probably at least 5 years. I think 1 or 2 of these brushes are about 4 or 5 years old. It's kind of wild to think about. Super, super underrated. They have so many shapes and sizes on their website. They also have a mixture of synthetic and natural hair. I have only one natural hair in here, which is this one right here. So let's just talk about it first. This is the T82. As you can see, it's nice and small, and it's super fluffy, and I feel like this one just is really great for like extra blending of feathering the edges. But I can also tell on this one that I feel like it's not the best quality after like a couple of washes. I don't know if this will last me forever, but I do feel like it's a great brush like right now that I'm using it. Next up is a T63 brush, and yes, I have 5 of these. This is one of those brushes just like the Rephr 13 and 14 that I cannot have enough of these. These are just, if you are to buy any brush from all the blending brushes I'm about to talk about, buy this one. It is also extremely affordable, but I don't think it's more than $8. I believe it's like $6 or $7. It is sold out sometimes because it is just that amazing. This is such a tiny little workhorse of a blending brush. I absolutely love it. Cannot go without it, and I cannot stress enough how much I recommend at least getting this brush from Makeup Shack. But they really have such a great assortment. They also have lashes, etc. They do have, I believe, like if you sign up, you get like 20% off your first order, so you know you can get this even for cheaper. Next up from the Makeup Shack, I have the T9 brush, and I have 2 of these as well. This is like a really nice, just shorter, so therefore it kind of gives you less control because it is shorter and denser. So it gives you like, you can really use this to blend out especially anything that might not want to be blending out. So it's got a little bit of stiffness to it, help the shadow move around. But this is also great for the outer corner, just packing on the lid. Also great for a halo eye, packing on the inner corner and outer corner and then blending it out slowly. Really amazing brush. Next up is probably one of the biggest brushes I'm going to be talking about in terms of blending, if not the biggest one actually, and that is the T87. It's just, I love the shape of this. It is a really great brush. This one is fluffier and more domed, so you do get a little bit more precision in placement. And it's just nice and fluffy and really great for blending out after placing down eyeshadow. And I probably wouldn't really use this for like blending out the outer corner, but this is a great like crease brush. Continuing on with synthetic blending brushes, I did receive 1 set in PR, but the rest of these I purchased. You can now buy these individually, and I do have an affiliate code with Blend Bunny in case you're interested in these. I will put it up on the screen. I have a dedicated video on these brushes in case you want to see them in action, you want to see how they perform, you want to see how they look next to the eye. I also do want to mention I will be working on a dedicated Makeup Shack video, so stay tuned for that. It's going to feature a bunch of other blending brushes that they have. But back to Blend Bunny, these are really great. They are a little bit like on the stiffer side, so in comparison to some of these other blending brushes, for example, the Rephr 13 and 14, these have a lot of give to it. They have a lot of movement. The Blend Bunny brushes do have just a little bit less give, but they have some great smaller brush sizes with different types of tips. So we have like a more dome, a little bit more pointed, a little bit more flat at the top. The number 5 brush, yes, the number 5 brush is probably the largest of the set. Also, the B2 brush right here, as well as the, I think this is B3 right here. These are great for work under their lower lash line. You can really get up in there because they are so small. They're basically like a pencil brush without being too pointed. Next up are the Spectrum Collections brushes. I also have a dedicated video on these brushes. I will link down in the description box so you can see these in action. And basically they have larger versions of the B10 and B11, but I do prefer these smaller versions of them. But in case you wanted like both versions to kind of play around with, you could do that as well. They do have sales. I really don't think these are already really expensive. expensive. And these are synthetic, obviously, by the color of the bristles. They do have slightly like different variations of colors of the handles and also the bristles. So basically this is the same thing. These two brushes are the same, but they have different color bristles and handles. But these are really, really great. This one also, the A12, is great for the outer corner, just packing on. Depending on how much you want to blow out the lower lash line, you could also use it for that. And then the B10 here is got quite a bit of flair to it. It's basically like the synthetic version of the 224 brush from Zoeva. You can see it's pretty flat at the top. It's quite flared out. It has a lot of bend to it, so you're gonna get basically like a really nice blend, but not necessarily like a lot of pigment with this. This is really going to be just blending in a large area. Last up, I have two Gazette brushes. They have tons of brushes. I've had a couple of other shapes of theirs. They have a lot of larger blending brushes, so these are really my favorite. And these basically are really, really small. And these are very long, so they have a lot of blends. So I do feel like because of that, you don't have as much control, but you also do because they are so small and like kind of pointed. There's not really much of a difference between these two. This is the number 10 and this is the 185. And these are really great for like if you're doing a cut crease and you need to add a little bit more depth and you've already cut the crease, you can really go in strategically and place some matte shadow down and blend it without something that's really, really fluffy and it's going to overlap over the cut crease section. You could also use this, you know, before the cut crease, etc. You could use this under the lower lash line. I do feel like it's a little bit too flimsy for under the lower lash line, but you could really just feather the edges out further if anything. But these are also great brushes. So that's it for the blending brushes. Now let's get into the shader brushes. I have quite a bit to go through. These two brushes are a little bit new to my collection, and it is the 0100 brushes from Glam shop. I feel like I thought these were a little bit different, but I think it's just the handles on these. But if anything, I think actually this one is a little fluffier this way. I'm not sure if it's meant to be like that or if they're supposed to be exactly the same. Anyways, this is a really, really great, slightly toothy, flat shader brush that's really, really small. You can really be precise with your shadow application if you wanted to. So these are great if you're Europe-based, of course, because Glam Shop is going to be easiest to get for you. If you're US-based, then I think I have some other options for you that are from other brands that might be easier and cheaper to ship. So speaking of which, we have these Spectrum A16 brushes. Sorry, some of these are a little bit dirty. These are not as toothy though, and these are synthetic. I do believe the Glam Shop are natural hair, just based on how they feel, but I would have to double check on the website. And these are all the same, and I love these. These are amazing for getting up like right against the cut crease section if you were, you know, adding in a shimmer to highlight really above your crease. And because these are synthetic, they also work great with creamier formulas as well as flakies, etc. Love these brushes, and that's why I have 3 of them. Next up, I have 2 different Rephr brushes, the 21 and the 28. You can see the shape is slightly different. The bristle type is also a bit different. So the 21 is flatter and larger but curved at the top, and then the 28 is smaller and more domed at the top, and also a little bit toothier, I would say. And these are just amazing for any type of really shimmer formula. I feel like these just really grasp on to just anything, whether it's a little bit chunkier or not. Obviously, if it's really, really chunky, then probably not. But otherwise, I love these brushes. I love them so much, and I really feel like I can't live without these anymore, just kind of like the 13 and 14 brushes. So another very similar brush to that is the Hakuhodo J242. It's actually very similar to the Rephr 28. I really feel like these are basically identical. So, you know, I would definitely opt for the cheaper option, which would be Rephr when it's on sale. But if you are interested in buying Hakuhodo, then of course you could, but again, same thing. These just really pick up pigment so nicely. Almost forgot this other Hakuhodo brush. It is larger than the previous one, as you can see. It is also just got a little bit of a different kind of shape to it, and it is toothier or just a little bit thicker, and the way that the bristles are cut is also just slightly different here. They're kind of like shorter to taller, more than on the smaller brush. And this is the BJ004G. I believe it's kind of rubbing off, so I'm not 100% sure, but this is a really great larger shader brush if you just really want to put a shimmer all over the lid. Next up is the What's Up Beauty R106 that was gifted to me, and I absolutely love this brush. It is actually extremely similar to the Hakuhodo brush that I was just talking about, if not identical. I'm not sure if this one is less expensive or not. Maybe see if you can wait for a sale for this one, but this one is just like the others, really, really amazing. So you've got a couple of different options of the same thing from different brands, which is really up to you what you decide to choose to buy. And then next up, I didn't want to just, this is kind of like an honorable mention. This is the BK Beauty 203 brush, and this is supposed to be a brush that applies eyeshadow like your finger, and I do really love it. It does not have much precision. Pick up metallic shadows really, really nicely, and it also puts them down really nicely. Really, really enjoy this brush. I wish they had smaller versions of this one, but again, it's toothier, it's a little bit fluffier, but it is an amazing shader brush. Next up are these two Game Beauty brushes that were recently gifted to me, and I just love how small they are. They don't have a lot of tooth to them. The bristles are pretty tight up against each other, so we've got the E04 and the E05, and I mean, is this not like the most perfect tiny little super precision brush? It's even smaller than the Spectrum. It's basically like a baby of the Spectrum brush, and just really, really amazing for extra precision work if that's something that you want to do or you do. And then this one is a little bit larger. It is also shorter, but it has a nice dome to it. It's currently covered in Donna Summer's Color Fix, but it's amazing. And again, this one will work with creams and gels really, really nicely because it is synthetic. So next up is this Sigma Shader Lid Brush, the E56. And this brush is so great for cut creases, half cut creases, especially if you're a beginner. I like that it's smaller versus some of the wider brushes, but it is really, really flat, and it really comes to a point to create that sharp edge of a cut crease, and it's synthetic, so it's great with creamy kind of formulas such as eyeshadow primers. This next one is not a brush but a silicone applicator. This one is from Sephora. I do know that the Makeup Shack carries it as well, so if you were to make a purchase from there, you could just throw one of these in your cart if you don't already have it. I think it's a staple. There's lots of different shapes and sizes. I love this shape, but I've been wanting to get a slightly larger one. It just doesn't cover enough surface area, and I would love it to be a little bit wider. This is great for applying anything gel, liquid, cream, as well as flakies and glitters and just chunkier types of formulas. It's just amazing to have around, and you might be struggling with applying a certain kind of product, and this will really be helpful to have. So highly recommend having a silicone applicator. Doesn't have to be this exact. Next up are these two Hakuhodo brushes. I've had these for a while. This one right here is the B5511, and this one actually has the number rubbed off, so I'll have to check on their website what it's called. But these are just such tiny little shader brushes. I actually don't really use them that much for that. But this one in particular is pretty stiff, so I actually like to use it under my lash line. I like to use it to create an eyeshadow wing. So basically mapping it out, creating a blueprint, so to speak, before filling in the shadow. This one is really great for that. And so with this one, I have used this one to fill in the liner actually. So these are just really great tiny little brushes to have. Moving on to the lower lash line brushes, this is the BK Beauty 204. This one is super soft. It's the perfect size to fit under my lower lash line. I love it for that, also because it is soft and not prickly. Pretty much the only thing I use it for. I actually want to get more of these because it's just so soft, and I find myself reaching for this one a lot. The other brushes I find myself reaching for their lower lash line are these pencil brushes, the What's Up Beauty R101 brush, which is this pink one, and then the 03 from Rephr and the 23 from Rephr, and you can see the shape difference here. I think that the 03 is extremely similar size to their R101 for What's Up Beauty. If anything, maybe it's a little bit longer, maybe a little bit more tapered in, even if you will, if you're really trying to get nitpicky here. And then obviously the 23 is super tiny. This is just such an amazing brush to have. I really feel like I rely on this brush so much more. You could use this for the inner corner highlight. You could also use this one if you wanted to. I really love using this brush to add in some depth to a cut crease. If I lost a little bit of that depth right above the cut crease, you could just really go in strategically and place a little bit of darker shadow and then use this to blend it out. So I absolutely love these brushes, and again, Rephr has quite a few sales throughout the year, so you could usually get these for about like $12, $13, if that. They're staples in my collection. They're just really amazing, small, soft brushes. Next up is this super cool brush, and the moment I saw it, I knew I had to try it out. This is the E27 from Rose and Ben Beauty. She's a creator. I don't think she has a YouTube. She might have, but she's really big on TikTok and Instagram. And she came out with her own brush brand, and so her name is Rose and her husband's name is Ben, so it's Rose and Ben Beauty. And this brush is so just fascinating, so cool. It feels so luxury, really high quality. The wood is lacquered and it does come down to a really nice point down here, which I love that. This brush has become such a staple in my collection. I love using it under the lower lash line. It's super soft for that. It's perfect size for that as well. Something about the angle just makes it really easy to use. And I've also been creating eyeshadow wings with this, and as much as I really love using the Rephr brush for that as well, I just really feel like this makes it like almost even easier because it's like a eyeliner brush, but it's fluffier, so it will give you more of that blendability to it. And also I love seeing the way that Rose uses it in her TikTok videos. She definitely has like different techniques on how you can use it and what you can use it for, so highly recommend checking her TikTok out for that, as well as Instagram. I think she does repost some of her TikToks on there as well. Next, onto these two liner brushes. This one is the Sigma Winged Liner EO6. I've had this one for many years. I have a second one of this. I love this brush so much. If you like to use gel liner, this one is really amazing if you're a beginner. There's something about this shape, it's just not your average angled eyeliner brush. There's something to it that just makes it really easy to use. I wouldn't recommend using it for anything like precise, like too much of like graphic liner where you really want a thinner line. It's not really the best for that, but for a basic wing, for a little bit of a graphic liner, it is great for that. For finer line work, I highly recommend this Cut Creaser and by Mellow Lobs C3 eyeliner brush, and you can see the bristle is pretty long, and something about this makes it so easy to use. If you want to do some finer liner work above your crease, this just makes it super effortless, and there's just something about the way that this works that it just works. Like, it's way easier to use for that purpose than this. This doesn't, however, work to do a wing because it is too long for that, but it is just great for finer details, so highly recommend getting at least this one. I think there's a couple of brands now at this point that have something similar though, and you might be able to find something like this on Amazon. I know that there's some artists that just use Amazon brushes that are probably for watercolors or something like that. So here's a comparison of all the shader brushes, and I will label these on the screen so you can get a good idea on all the different shapes and the sizes, the length of the bristles, the width of the bristles. Are they flaring out? Are they skinnier? Do they taper in, which I don't think any of them. This one tapers in a little bit at the base. But you can see the Rephr 21, for example, is a larger shading brush, and so is this Hakuhodo brush and the R106 brush from What's Up Beauty, and this one you can see from BK Beauty is pretty fluffy, and this is probably the tiniest shading brush I've ever seen. You can use this brush for so many different things. So for the grand finale, here's a comparison between all the blending brushes that are some of my favorite brushes, and you can really see how these compare in size-wise. So that's why I really love all of these. Now, some of these you might think are a little bit similar, but that doesn't mean they perform the same. And what I mean by that is because of the type of bristles, the length of the bristles, and the bendability of the bristles, they will perform differently even if they have similar shapes. So I do think though, however, the only that perform similarly would be the ones that are natural hair between Rephr, Wayne Goss, and Hakuhodo. These do perform, I would say, pretty much very similarly. Amongst these, the shapes are very similar. They have the same bristles. They have about the same bendability, give or take. But in terms of, for example, the Blend Bunny Cosmetics versus a Rephr or a Hakuhodo, totally different. These bristles are much stiffer. They're synthetic. The shape is a little bit different. And because of all those specific characteristics to that brush, they do perform differently from all the different brushes from the Rephr and the Hakuhodo and the Wayne Goss. So for example, if I go like this, you can kind of see the bristles are bending much easier all the way at the tops, especially than this. The whole brush is moving because they are stiffer. And that really goes for all the blending brushes. Where's the largest one? This one. This was a little bit softer at the top, but especially these are very, very stiff. So basically you're going to be blending in different motions. So something like this is really fluffy, so you can really just sweep that around and spread the pigment around that way. But with something that's a bit stiffer, you do have to kind of work in smaller motions and in very specific placements. You can't just go in and be sweeping because it will not have the same effect as if you're sweeping with something much fluffier and softer on the tip. So I really would recommend, if you're looking for smaller blending brushes, really probably from here down is ideal. These are really just some of the smallest. I think there's a few options between synthetic and natural, different brands as well. For the most part, these are all affordable. The only really not so affordable brushes would be Hakuhodo. The Wayne Gloss is not available anymore. I don't remember how much Gazette was, but it was kind of like in between. Spectrum has sales a lot. I do believe the What's Up Beauty brushes are around the same price as a full priced Rephr brush. Rephr is always having 30-40% off sales at least, so definitely utilize those. The Blend Bunny brushes are super affordable. P. Louise brushes, they're, I think, again, like mid-range, but they do have sales quite a bit, so recommend getting those on sale. And Makeup Shack brushes are also super affordable. Oh, actually, I totally forgot about this one Sonia G brush. This one would be the most expensive out of all of these. That being said, like, I don't think you need this one. I wouldn't go for this one, but if you want to be bougie and you want to buy from Beautylish or you have a gift card, then go for it. So those are all my brush recommendations for hooded, smaller lids, or just if you really want that precision. Doesn't matter even your eye shape. I really feel like smaller eye brushes are just where it's at. They're super, super important. And once you try smaller brushes, you're definitely going to see a difference. Like, I can almost guarantee it. If not, I can guarantee it, because I know a lot of people that it's happened to, that they've tried smaller brushes and they were just like, this is life-changing. I do have an affiliate code with Blend Bunny Cosmetics as well as Game Beauty, and I'll put those up on the screen in case you're purchasing any of those brushes after seeing my recommendations. Greatly appreciated if you do. And I hope this video was helpful. Let me know in the comments below what are some of your favorite smaller eye brushes. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you're new to my channel, I would love it if you subscribe. There's so much content around eyeshadows, whether that's tutorials, brush reviews, so much makeup content uploading my channel, and much more to come. So you don't want to miss out. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.